Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Katrina Adkins with SHI. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Ravneet Chadha, Chief Data Officer at University of Arizona. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Good morning, Katrina. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So I'm anxious to jump in and learn more about you. I would love to start with just some professional interests of yours. Would you be able to expand on just some of those interests and kind of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to start off, I'm Ravneet Chadha. I'm the Chief Data Officer and Associate Vice President for University Analytics and Institutional Research. I know, long title, but at University of Arizona. From a background perspective, born and brought up in India, moved here for school. So how I like to put it is born and brought up in India, grew up in the US. So that's how I think about it. Uh, been in the data and IT industry for a little over 15 years now. Started off from, I would say, desktop server support, and then moved into the business intelligence data realm, and then finally into the institutional research aspect of it. We used to have two different teams at University of Arizona. One was for BI and one was for IR. And I played an instrumental part of bringing those two groups together to create what we call University Analytics and Institutional Research, just to provide not just data, but also provide answers to some very challenging higher ed challenges that I would say, or questions, sorry. From a professional interest perspective, I've always been interested in the data since the time I got into this field. I think that might come from an engineering background that I have. I believe in providing, the analytics, governance, operations, innovations around the data. And I believe that they are the four mainstays of a successful CDO. So that has been a big thought process behind my role, I would say. Have a keen interest in supporting and setting directions in a very strategic and planning sort of projects and initiatives across different areas, even if they're not tied directly to the data itself. I enjoy being part of the solution or part of the team that is providing a solution to the organization that I work for. Since our team at the University of Arizona also manages the enterprise data warehouse, I would say one of my biggest goal is to continue to modernize the enterprise data warehouse, right? This is an ever-changing field of technology that, you implement something today, a new thing comes out tomorrow. So how do we figure out what's the perfect balance and what works for you? Sometimes you don't want to upgrade and you want to stay with where we are, or create a hybrid model for yourself. So I think just that challenge of understanding what will work best for you is a critical part of where I'm today. In addition to the data warehouse, we've been able to create a data lake just from an higher ed perspective, because we have to do a little bit more of an exploratory research work as well. So from that standpoint, a data lake is more conducive to those research questions that come out of, machine learning and artificial intelligence piece of things. So that has been a big focus for the last few years. And then one thing that has been super close to me that I would say from a professional interest that stands out is data literacy. I think everyone's interested in data. Everyone wants data, whether you give them in fancy dashboards or reports or Excel sheets or, back of the envelope, but in the end, you need somebody to kind of explain them the information, right? You can look at the same number and talk about it in 10 different ways, but there is one way to answer the question accurately and more precisely. And I believe that only can happen if you're actually providing context to the information that you're sharing with them. So we have a lot of initiatives set up in the organization to basically support our customers from a data literacy standpoint. And that is something that we can go in detail if time permits.
Wonderful. That is so exciting. Thank you so much. You mentioned data literacy and AI. Are those part of your strategic efforts at the university?
Yes, data literacy and AI. So one of the things that I'll say is, since I've been in the unit since its inception back in 2009, we were initially focused on transitioning our old ERP systems into the new modern versions of them back in 2009. But university also wanted to have a data warehouse established for reporting. And that's when I started off in this field. I had barely just graduated, looking for a job, and this happened to be the perfect fit. And I started working here, and then I would say we were just churning out reports day-to-day basis. Like we have almost 10,000 reports, or excuse me, 30,000 reports that we run on daily basis from our reporting environment. So that adds up to almost 10 million reports that come out of our reporting environment, not actually accessing the data warehouse directly. So that's a big number for a higher ed place. We have 4,600 users of our analytics environment where we actually provide them, nightly refresh reporting. From an AI perspective and data literacy, that was something that was not necessarily done as much because, again, focus was on the reporting part. But in the last 3 to 4 years, and especially since I took over as the first chief data officer here at the University of Arizona, that became a big focal point for me. I wanted to make sure we do that. The projects on AI are a little tricky to figure out. But we are just getting started on that front and seeing what we can do with that. But I would say data literacy, I feel very confident and comfortable with where we have been in terms of our data exploration series, where we do lunch and learn sessions, videos, trainings, office hours, a lot of time going into providing that support to our users to actually understand the data, not just saying, hey, here's the data, you can figure out and plan the narrative as you want.
Thank you so much. That's so interesting. I'm extremely interested in artificial intelligence, so that's quite exciting that you all are doing that out there. So you have quite a history at the University of Arizona. It's very exciting. I'd love to hear a little bit more just about your journey, just your undergraduate, maybe your graduate journey, and how you got to University of Arizona.
So I would say I always wanted to come to the US for grad school. But thanks to one of my cousins, we talked and he was like, maybe you should go for undergrad. And that's how I changed my plans. And I ended up coming out for my undergrad, and I did a bachelor's in electrical engineering. I would say, coming from India, a lot of people or a lot of my fellow Indian students or international students would say that there was a cultural shock. But to be very honest, I didn't really feel that initially when I came for undergrad, for whatever reason that was. But undergraduate journey was a lot more interesting one. Transition was a lot easier for me from a cultural standpoint. But I would say the hard part was working and going to the school at the same time. Had to figure out time for school, time for work, but also you're an undergrad. You kind of want to have fun too. So, how do you balance all of those pieces out? So it becomes tough from figuring out the time balance amongst all of these pieces. The other part is, coming from India, you're like, you go to school, you graduate, and then you go to work. Not many people are actually working and going to school at the same time. So that was a little different. I know that's a very common concept here for the US students, but coming from India, that was a little different. But I would say it prepped me very well from a planning standpoint. And I think that's where I am, I would say, pretty good at managing the time and kind of figuring out like, okay, you only have 24 hours in a day. So how do you plan that out? Right? You can only do this much for this particular project. You can only dedicate this much amount of time for this particular project. So I think that there's a piece that ultimately helped me. I have friendships that I built over, my undergrad days that still are there. I went to U of A, so, I've been at University of Arizona for 18 years. So I have people who were my, I would say, faculty, my bosses, or my, fellow students who are now my peers or colleagues. And I think that's the part that's very interesting, and that keeps like I don't have much family here. So from that perspective, it definitely helps bring pieces together and you have a good support system. Grad school was interesting because I did grad school while working full-time and going to grad school full-time, but I did it online. with the University of Arizona again, but I had the opportunity whenever I had no meetings on the calendar and it was class time, I would actually go to class. So it was very interesting from that particular standpoint. And, going back to school after a few years of break, I would say definitely helped me kind of understand and relate everything that I was learning in class to my job at that point. Right. So that was an interesting part to do both of the pieces together. And again, the discipline from a scheduling perspective that I had from an undergrad day or from my early career days, I think it definitely helped me from that standpoint. The work experience under my belt definitely helped me understand the material in the classes in a better way as well. So I would say overall, a pretty good experience of, being here a long time. So it has been a good journey, I would say. Sometimes a little bit challenging, but that's for everyone. But again, a huge learning experience, and grateful to be where I'm at with the University of Arizona and all the things and relationships I've been able to keep for all these years.
I have to say, I feel like your colleagues, your peers are extremely lucky to have you there at the University of Arizona, extremely lucky to be working with you. So I just really enjoyed getting to know you. So thank you, Ravneet, for joining me today. And for those of you who are out here listening, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Katrina. It's been a pleasure.